You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves come out and dominate the Nuggets today. They never trailed at any point in this one. Final score 133-104. What's going on back in the lab, back at it? Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. He's live from the Target Center. Give him a follow on X at JRBorman13. Jack, lots to get into in this one. Ant-Man's 34 points. T-Wolves domination in the paint and on the glass. Plus, I want to talk to you about Rob Dillingham's premium minutes as well. But first, quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so Wolves coming into this one. Obviously, no DDV. I'll ask you about him maybe at the end in segment 3, just kind of what his current status is. But, you know, the rematch of that tremendous Western Conference divisional matchup versus Denver we had last year, Game 7. Wolves rally all the way back from 20 down. They win by 8. They came out strong and fast in this one. 40 points in the first quarter. Target Center was rocking, and they really just never looked back. I mean, it was almost like they were on cruise control. Up 11 at halftime, up 20 most of the third quarter. Final score, 133-104. They moved to 24-21 on the year, 3 games above 500. I like to start big picture kind of first, just real quick. How huge was that to come out and just what feels like, for maybe the first time all year, dominate a game from start to finish like that against a really good team? Maybe not the same Nuggets from the past, but still a really good team like this Denver squad. Never trailed at any point, and again, had a 20-plus point lead most of the game, which was really nice. So big picture, how great is that for this locker room right now?
Yeah, it's huge. Just some context coming in. Nikola Jokic had 5 triple-doubles in a row coming into this game. He, in their last time out, had 35 points, 22 rebounds, 17 assists, and 1 turnover in just 37 minutes on Thursday night against the Kings. All 5 of those triple-doubles with 2 or less turnovers and 50% shooting from the floor. And you thought Jokic was going to pick right up where he left off, had made his first 5 shots, I believe. In this game, had 13 very quick points and only had 7 points the rest of the way, and really was limited to just being a playmaker and did not look to really score all that much. I think Rudy Gobert and the Timberwolves defense did an awesome job of kind of clamping down after that. But just when you consider that momentum, and then you also consider that Denver came in winning 8 of their last 9, had a net rating of about plus 12 on the last 5 games. So this is a great win. I don't often come in here and say that this is an awesome win for the Wolves and they should feel really good about themselves going back into that locker room down the hall from me here, but they certainly should. This was just an absolute stomping of a really good basketball team that's been playing really well, that's fully healthy, has all their guys firing now, and now that Aaron Gordon's back, and certainly he's still on a bit of a minutes restriction, but still been playing really well, shooting really efficiently for them. So for the Wolves to come in and play really well right away off the rip was awesome. And that tone was totally set by Rudy Gobert. Had 2 very quick buckets early, had 4 assists in the first quarter, was making really good decisions when he got the ball in the middle of the floor. Made a couple of, really nice push shots or kind of, tougher little layups for him that weren't dunks. So it was nice to see him get that to go down, had that pick 6 on Jokic, and just was really, I thought he still contested a lot of Jokic shots about as good as you have, and his rim protection as a whole was excellent, and got off to setting a great tone in that first quarter, and then throughout the rest of the game carried it forward. He was 6 of 6 before his first miss, but again, for Rudy, 14 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, team high plus 26 in 30 minutes. When he gets the ball in the middle of the floor and he's able to, just kind of create from there, whether it's do that little, Euro step into a layup to make it a little easier for him. We saw him do that a lot last year, a little bit less this year. But when he's able to make short roll passes and score from the middle of the floor, if teams are going to bring 2 to the ball and Anthony Edwards and everyone else is spaced out, it's a huge positive for this team. And it just kind of goes to show how much better this team could be if Rudy had, even a bare minimum bag. But hey, with what he's working with, he played about as perfectly as he could tonight. And Again, when Rudy's able to do that in the middle of the floor, the spacing is just so much better, and the driving lanes are open everywhere because that defense is stretched out, and that's certainly what happened. It allowed Julius Randle to get impactful early in the game. We'll get into it a little later, but he had a fun matchup up against Russell Westbrook. That's kind of the exchange for Westbrook starting and not Gordon, with Russ guarding Julius Randle. So Julius Randle went at him for 3 scores in the first quarter, and that was important. And again, Gobert has his fingerprints on that because of the way that he was able to play in the middle of the floor and force more one-on-one matchups with a more spaced out floor. And then when when Randle, wasn't able to get all the way to the rim or get to a shot, he found Gobert in the middle of the floor, and Gobert would give it back to him, or, was able to, drop it off for Gobert to score inside. So I just thought that those two displayed a really excellent chemistry. And again, just everything there kind of started with Gobert. And then, when the offense is able to space the way that they were, the Timberwolves had 14 assists in the first quarter alone. And for reference, like the best teams in the NBA average like 32 a game.
Yeah.
So for them to have, 14 assists, just 2 turnovers in that first quarter was awesome. A huge hat tip to the spacing there. And they ended up keeping that forward and ended up with a season high 38 assists, and were too shy of their season high in points. But
was that their best first quarter of the year?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Considering the circumstances, it certainly was. And that was with Anthony Edwards scoring just 2 points on 1 of 4 shooting. He did have 4 assists.
That's the thing too, right? You score 40 in the first quarter, and you don't show me the box score. I assume Ant's got at least 8, if not 10 or more, 9. Right? Like how? Let's transition to Ant, because he had 34 points. I mean, how much does he love playing this team, right? Like 34 points, quiet start to the game, even with those 34 points, 9 assists though on top of the 34. It just really feels like, if you sit down and watch him play from the beginning of the season to now, it just really feels like he's figuring out that kind of balance, right? That happy medium of when to pass it up when he's getting doubled, create for his teammates, versus when to just turn it on, stay aggressive, and be that playmaker that we all know and love, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that playmaking certainly looks better when Gobert is doing what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Off the short roll. So it certainly makes the decision for Ant to get off the ball look better, even though it is correct, independent of what Gobert does. But I thought Ant played into the game really, really well. And after the first quarter, I thought Ant was just going to kind of be checked out and not be super aggressive, just because he was a game time decision coming into this with an illness. And, I'm sure, I'm not a parent, obviously, but people in here watching it, I'm sure, who have had young kids at home know that it's pretty easy to pick up any type of sickness, from your kids. So that was certainly a factor, but he really responded after, 2 points, 1 of 4 shooting in that first quarter, had 32 points on 13 of 19 shooting the final 3 quarters, with 5 more assists on top of that. And I thought just really picked his spots really well in terms of one to pull up for threes, one to attack, one to kind of pull it out and isolate against guys. And then, mixed in some really good corner skip passes to Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker for shots too, which was not Nickeil, Jaden, which was really good to see from him. I think that's kind of when he's feeling really confident as a playmaker, is when he's able to kind of get to the elbows or get to those short corners and make cross-court skip passes off the pick and roll with Gobert. So for him to do that was awesome. And then the cherry on top was him becoming the franchise's all-time leader and made 3-point field goals. Did that on the logo bomb in the fourth quarter, which was cool to see. So for him to already be this prolific of a 3-point shooter in year 5, what is it, year 5, year 6 now for Ant, is just a joy to watch. And he certainly, along with Rudy Gobert, really took this thing over in the third quarter. Ant had 16 of his 34 points in the third quarter, 3 assists, 0 turnovers in that frame. Was just pressing all the right buttons, making all of his shots, and just had the crowd in the palm of his hand. And games like that are a ton of fun to be here at Target Center in the crowd when he's got that rolling. And we know that he just loves playing against the Nuggets. There's not really a good defensive matchup against him because Christian Brown's too small. Aaron Gordon's too slow side to side. And he always used to love going up against Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's now with the Magic, but Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, another Georgia alum, but a guy who is kind of the best of both worlds, if you will, for the Nuggets going against Ant, but certainly did not hold up the way that he needed to in the playoffs last season. So it was really fun to see Ant just kind of take control of this game and really, I think, respond from a slow and somewhat energyless start despite the good playmaking. So it was awesome to see him kind of play his way into the game, not forcing it, but just playing in the flow. And when you're playing in the flow and you've got the spacing and you've got Gobert rolling and Ant and him have that dynamic going with Julius and all the bench guys chipping in on the side of that, it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, from a fan perspective, whether you were there live at the Target Center this afternoon or just watching from home, this one checked. It felt like every single box you could ask for. Plenty more deep dive. Want to talk to you about Rob Dillingham's minutes. He looked confident, plus just how dominant the Wolves were in the paint, on the glass. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a monster, a huge return, $300 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. Why I love FanDuel, when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $300 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 wager. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in on some NBA future action while you're there. Naz Reid, 6 Man of the Year odds, still sitting at 6-1. It's all sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $300 in bonus bets guaranteed if you win your first $5 wager. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, I want to ask you about the Wolves and paint and on the glass, but first, let's just talk about Dilly. Dilly, the man everybody wants to see play and keep logging minutes, keep developing, and it's obvious why, right? He's got the goods, man. He was in his bag today, at least in the first half, playing with some confidence, 20 total minutes on the day, 10 points, 5 boards, 4 assists. He did have 6 turnovers, but all in all, what'd you like from his 20 minutes today? And how encouraged or excited should Wolves fans be about not just his future, but I guess the future of the point guard position as a whole when you look at who they got on paper for not just this year, but next year and beyond?
Yeah, I think, again, the 6 turnovers pop out, but I think 2 or 3 of those, one of them went through Naz Reid's hands. Another one was kind of a steal turnover combo that didn't go his way. So it wasn't as bad as it looked. But for Rob, yeah, I just think that how dynamic he is really pops next to Ant. And I like that they've been pairing those two guys together at the end of the first quarter so that they can at least get some run together, because Ant really feeds off of Rob's energy, and you can tell that he really trusts Rob. When the defense is bringing 2 to him, Rob's kind of open, 1 pass away in the slot, and he's been really productive making plays behind that kind of first line of the defense. And he's just not shy either, which is really important. And I think for him to be confident making a couple of threes in this game, and then, also is super willing to dance in isolation and one-on-one, and has a really creative and strong handle, which is really fun. And I'm not really all that concerned about the turnovers or the lack of chemistry with some of these guys, just because he hasn't played. And the other part too that I think people also may not think about too much is he's missed time. He's missed like a month all in all with that right ankle sprain.
Mm-hmm.
So he hasn't had a ton of time to practice with these guys too. And you consider that, Ryan Eichten, who does a great job over at Candace Hoopus, tweeted out a couple of games ago that I think that this is, the Wolves haven't had back-to-back home games in over a month, I think. So It really has just felt like one continuous long road trip, and they haven't had a whole lot of practice time, because I think, the 2 days that they just had off in between Wednesday and today, that was the first time they've had 2 days off in between games in a long time. So there just hasn't been a whole lot of practice time for him to get acclimated. But what's most encouraging to me is just the confidence as a scorer. For him to be able to score as a catch and shoot guy in the 2-man game with Gobert, he made a 3 there at the start of the second quarter. And then for him to show that he can get all the way to the rim and get past defenders and finish inside has been fun to see too. So he can really score at all 3 levels on the offensive end. I like that he's remained aggressive. He hasn't let, a poor performance against the Mavs the other day kind of make him a little bit more hesitant. You can tell that he's just not thinking as much about messing up. He's just going out there and playing, which is exactly what you want to see, especially when you've got Anthony Edwards next to you to make it a little bit easier for you. So that was a lot of fun. And, I still thought that he was pretty competitive defensively. I mean, for a guard his size to have 5 rebounds.
Still figuring it out. Yeah.
Had a few really strong contested rebounds on the defensive end of the floor in the first quarter, which was fun to see. But yeah, it's just a spark plug. 7 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists in the first quarter, and just like 3 minutes of play. What was really fun to see. And again, I think, even if Rob at this point gives you one really good half, and the second half wasn't quite as much of a factor, just because Ant and Rudy had it going, and Mike was playing really well, Nikhil was playing really well. I still think that's super important. And it, the bench can never really seem to fully harmonize in terms of all 3 of them playing awesome at the same time, even within an individual game. But all 3 of them gave the Timberwolves awesome spurts throughout this game. And it was 42-25 in bench points. And Rob was a huge part of, helping those guys get off on the right foot. It was great to see Rob, Nikhil, and Naz all see shots go down right away when they got on the floor. So
yeah, that absolutely, that was huge. And again, just looking at, not just this year, but beyond, on paper, Ant, DDV, Dilly, I mean, it just feels all of a sudden versus at the beginning of the year, you just feel a little bit more comfortable. You can sleep a little bit easier at night, just knowing that position is just trajecting on the way up. And also, too, speaking of rebounding as well, Wolves out-rebounded the Nuggets 45-36. Points off turnovers, they scored 20 more points off turnovers than the Nuggets, 37 versus 17. And points in the paint, 72-58. Which one of those team stats jumps out to you the most, or you think was the biggest catalyst for this kind of runaway victory?
Yeah, I think it, points in the paint was a big one for me here. I think the 37 points off of turnovers is obviously huge for the Wolves. That's a new season high for them. 18 offensive rebounds ties a season high for them as well for 20 second chance points, but it's got to be points in the paint. 72 points in the paint, first time crossing 70 points for them this season. I think their previous high in a game was 66, and they crossed that mark with like 7 minutes left in this game. I just think the way that they dominated in the paint was really important, because the Timberwolves score 43.6 points per game in the paint. That's 25th in the NBA. I think they had 46 in the first half. So they beat their season average just in the first half. Wow. That was their most in any half this season by 8. And the Wolves in this game were plus 14 in the paint. Minnesota's season average in terms of their differential is minus 3.6, which is 23rd in the NBA. And Denver is plus 7.4, which is second best in the league. So Denver is dominated in the paint. That's obviously, something you can expect when you've got, someone like Nikola Jokic and great cutters and finishers all over the place on this team. And I just thought, considering the circumstances, you have to give Rudy Gobert a lot of credit for what he did to help make it more, at least a little bit more difficult for Denver to play through all their guys in the paint and force Denver to, get up 32 threes and take a few more mid-range shots than they're probably used to, which was really important. And I just thought the quality of looks that Denver got in the paint was nowhere near as high as what we're used to seeing from them with how well Rudy was able to contest. And overall, I just thought that they did a good job of holding Nikola Jokic pretty silent for a big chunk of this game. In the 17 minutes from the end of the first quarter to about midway through the second quarter, Joker took just 2 shots, had 3 assists, and had 3 turnovers. So the way that they essentially took him out of the game throughout that entire stretch and kind of forced him to just be a passer on the perimeter, and instead of, being kind of that overall offensive hub between scoring, playmaking, you name it, down on the low block was really important. So I think everyone on the defense deserves a ton of credit for that. But again, coming into this game, points off turnovers was really the big bugaboo for Denver, just in terms of the fact that they are, they've been a team that's really struggled in terms of the points off turnovers differential, especially of late coming into this game. So, Denver was minus 4.5 is generally kind of where their points off turnover differential is in the last few games here, which is 28th in the league. So, got to give credit for the Wolves going, that minus 4.5 average to be minus 20 for Denver was huge for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you look at the final score, 133-104, at the end of the day, that had a lot to do with it right there. A couple minutes left. We should talk about this Atlanta game. That's coming up Monday night, and that's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. When your schedule gets packed with work projects and more, it's so easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, they're more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, time to give BetterHelp a try, entirely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple. All you got to do, you fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched up with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Okay, before I ask you about Atlanta, that's Monday night. What's the latest update on DDV, his potential timetable to return? They did mention on the broadcast they got some good news that it sounds like he might not need surgery, and basically in about 3 weeks or so, they're just going to kind of check back in and see how he's doing. And, of course, that would be right around the All-Star break. But what have you heard, and what's the latest about DDV? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, my
trigger
button was
trigger happy
was hard to find there for a second. So that's a pretty significant development. So looking at a grade 3 toe sprain, which is what he was diagnosed with initially, is just like the worst possible case of turf toe you can get, and that's a 2 to 6 month recovery time for an injury. So 2 months.
That is such a huge contrast in window, 2 to 6 months. Like it just goes to show you never know, man. With those,
and it totally depends on
tough.
The person with, do you need surgery?
Yeah.
What sport is it? All sorts of different stuff. So, but effectively, and this is according to Lucas Seehafer, who has covered injuries in the NBA and WNBA for a long time. He effectively said that. The news downgrades Dante's toe sprain from a grade 3 to a grade 2. In a grade 2, the recovery time is more like 3 to 4 weeks or 4 to 5 weeks rather than multiple months. So that's obviously great news, and certainly could impact the Timberwolves' decision making at the trade deadline if they feel confident that that Dante will be able to return this season. Maybe you don't lean into quite as heavily with the youth movement, and maybe you do keep Randall around. If you feel like you get Dante back, you can maybe make some noise, win a first round playoff series, get into the second round of the playoffs, and when you've got Anthony Edwards, especially out west, almost anything could happen. So really best case scenario for the Timberwolves in terms of news on that injury. He's out of his boot. He was shooting after practice yesterday, which was obviously a great sign to see. So hope that he can get back as soon as he can, but also that the Wolves are pretty responsible about, not necessarily feeling like they need to rush him back. Like you said, especially with how well this, guard rotation has been playing for the Wolves of late.
Lester said, hey, if the Wolves trade Randall, I'll propose to my girlfriend. You think Lester's getting hitched here? What's your gut reaction? I mean, I asked you, I think it was last show, if not 2 shows ago, and you said still feels 50-50, but if I had to bet, my hunch is, yes, he does get traded. What do you think? Is Lester getting hitched in the next couple of weeks? What do you think?
I don't know.
All right, Lester, you heard it. You heard it here first, Lester.
But I think, if the Wolves continue to win over the next couple of weeks, let's say they end up sitting around, I don't know, 27 and 22 or something like that.
Sure. Yep.
I think that's enough where maybe you just keep on keeping on. You don't want to disrupt this thing, and you still are able to move Randall fairly easily in this offseason. But I definitely agree with Random Planet that I think the percentage chance of Randall being here after the deadline went up, given the Dante news. And Jeff, just a quick shot. I'm in an 18-team fantasy league for NBA, it's categories. I drafted Kel Ware late in that draft and had to dump him because I had so many injuries, and I've been so frustrated because he's been amazing the last couple of weeks. There's 0% chance that the Heat would take back Randall.
Wishful thinking. That's what we do here. Atlanta up next Monday night. By the way, 18-team NBA league. You are sick,
nuts.
my friend. I'm in a
16-team
fanny football league, and that thing, I mean, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel every week, dude. 18 teams, forget about it. Atlanta up Monday night. What kind of team have they been for people who haven't followed them or the Eastern Conference, whatever it may be? What's maybe different from them, maybe since we saw them last year, right? Like in years past. And I guess most importantly, like I always ask you, what's the blueprint Monday to take them down?
Yeah, I think obviously, Jalen Johnson not being there is a huge factor for them because he was awesome in that first matchup that the Wolves played with them. And he's generally enjoyed a really strong breakout this season, averaging close to 20 points and 10 rebounds a game. So that obviously is a huge factor. DeAndre Hunter, I think, has been in and out of the lineup as well the last few games for them, who would be the replacement there in terms of eating the majority of those minutes. So if, Johnson is for sure going to be out, but if Hunter is also out, that totally changes the calculus on the wing for the Hawks, just because Richeche is also out with an adductor injury. So they're pretty thin on the wing right now. So it's going to be a game where Jaden McDaniels needs to continue his really strong play. If obviously he's going to probably get the Trae Young matchup. So if he can just use his length to continue to bother Trae Young on the perimeter in that pick and roll game with Capella, that's going to be really important for them. And then, I think the other part for Jaden too is, he's probably going to have a smaller guy guarding him in this game as a result of the wing depth kind of being depleted for the Hawks. So if Jaden can continue to play really well, again, 13 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 block, 1 steal, 6 of 8 shooting, made his 1-3. I think that's huge for Jaden to continue building on this stretch of excellent play that he's had. He's been averaging almost 7 rebounds a game, I think, for the last month and change. So continuing to be a factor on the glass is going to be really important as well for him. And then, I think, another thing for Atlanta is they really shot the 3-point ball really well on their last matchup. I think Timberwolves fans will probably remember Garrison Matthews having a very random, 6 of 6 from 3 game. So I think that he'll probably see a little bit more run, just because, again, they're pretty thin. So we'll see if he's able to replicate that. But then again, the Wolves will probably have, the Hawks will probably have Dyson Daniels guarding Anthony Edwards, who has been absolutely phenomenal for them since they acquired him in that DeJounte Murray trade. So it's probably going to be pretty thin for Atlanta on the wing. And again, anything they can do to really get a strong effort from guys like Jaden McDaniels or Julius Randle, especially because there's just not going to be a whole lot of options for Atlanta to be able to guard them. So, I normally text you before each game.
Oh yeah.
How I think it's going to go.
Yep.
Just kind of give you a little,
a little feel.
Watch out
look into your crystal ball. Yep.
Probably how it can go, but the Timberwolves should win this game by double digits. And if they don't, maybe it's a little bit more like a Mavs game that we saw on Wednesday, where it's just, a win is a win. But again, if you can hold Trae Young to, anything below 25 points, you're doing a heck of a job with the way that he's played this year. And given that they just need a lot more from him. So, we'll
should be a fun one, man. Should be another fun one. Trae Young, for sure, always draws a lot of attention. Wolves dominate today versus the Nuggets from start to finish. Never trailed at any point in this one. 133-104 is your final. Ant with 34 points. Wolves moved to 24-21 on the year. 3 games above 500. As always, huge shout out to all the everydayers, all you guys that make us your first listen, all you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game, venting, celebrating, whatever it may be. Make sure you make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and please go follow Jack. He's on X at Borman13. He's live from the Target Center almost every home game. Again, Atlanta up next Monday night, 7 p.m. tip-off. We'll catch you right here, same time, same place. But until then, signing.